Welcome to Multiculturalism in Film and TV. I'm Rosie Gigure and I am very glad to bring you this talk with Matt Ferrucci. He's a filmmaker who's making it in Hollywood with the craft he loves. And if you've been part of our community, you know his story is the type of story we always like to share with you. I hope you enjoy it and learn more about how multicultural filmmakers can make an impact while achieving success in the entertainment industry. Hi, Matt. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
As you know, you are our guest of honor this month because we're celebrating and, we really want to celebrate all the cultures. And as we always celebrate Latino, Black History Month, this is the month for the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So what can you tell me about that? And thank you for representing, because you were born in San Francisco, but your origins are Pacific Islanders. So tell me.
Yes, yeah, and once again, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, I'm an Asian American, Filipino American filmmaker. I was born and raised in San Francisco in the 80s and 90s, which was such a diverse melting pot. This very progressive, cosmopolitan city. And I was just so lucky to grow up in a place that wasn't, the suburbs or very segregated. My mother was Filipino. I'm mixed. I always kind of joked I'm kind of an in between. My mother's Filipino. She was born and raised in Hawaii. My father's Italian, but it's funny. I always everyone when I was an actor told me I looked Latino. So, it was this thing growing up where, I was just brown. Let's put it that way. I was brown, and I really didn't have to identify or truly see how my ethnicity informed the world until I got to Hollywood and started out as an actor. I was an actor first, but I think back to your question, I think it's great that that we have Asian Pacific Islander month, where we can recognize, the cultural contributions of Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, that descent in the United States. I don't think a light has really been shown on those contributions to the arts, politics, education. So it's great that we now have that spotlight.
By the way, I know that the theme for this year in your celebration is coming together, community coming together, strength in unity. And I really love that, because that's why this podcast episodes that we do with you guys is called Multiculturalism in Film and TV. I do believe that the world is a multicultural pot everywhere.
Yes.
But I really just want to highlight that and recognize it. So that's why this spotlight is for you. Can you tell me the difference when you were born and raised in the 80s and 90s, as you said, and then coming to LA? How did you see? Because I came from Honduras at the beginning, but then Miami, where I lived a lot, and it was,
Right.
Latinos. We always say that we speak English in the signs in the stores because, we speak a lot of Spanish
Sure.
mostly. But when I came here, I saw a huge difference when I came to LA. But did you see that difference in San Francisco and LA about
Well,
multiculturalism?
it's interesting. That's actually like a really big sort of discussion. You know, uh, Northern California and Southern California really should be different states. They're almost like different countries because they're so different. Um, Los Angeles is this huge swath of land. It's, the second largest city in the United States. And, it's much more segregated in Los Angeles. You have Koreatown, you have, East Los Angeles with the Latino community. You have, South LA, which is more African American, and, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Brentwood, the Armenians in Glendale. So it's much more, of a segregated community. There's much more distinct neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Whereas in San Francisco, just because it's so small, you're just kind of all thrown together into the pot. But coming to LA from San Francisco, there wasn't much of a cultural shock for me, just coming from one, big city or cosmopolitan city to another. The characteristics of Los Angeles and Hollywood is a whole different, topic of conversation where I think the biggest thing that I had to navigate was, um, I don't think I'm wrong in saying there's a lot of more stereotypical things about Hollywood where a lot more surface stuff matters, um,
Mhm.
where looks, sort of your the heritage of who what in LA seemed more important at the time. Making those connections seemed more important at the time. But I think growing up in San Francisco, it really helped me because it gave me such a broad view of the world, and access to so many cultures that when I went anywhere else, I felt a little stronger in who I was. Yeah.
One of the things that you said, it was when you came that time, it was who you know, which I think in many industries is like that. And it's like if you go to Wall Street. But do you think the entertainment industry is changing from when you first came to now? How everything is being done?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously moving at such a faster pace, the changes and, obviously because of technology, things are moving so much quicker within the business. But yeah, I think absolutely there's a different mindset, on just the way people look at the world in perspective. I think a lot of those walls have been, crashed to the ground in the last 3, 4 years. And when I got here, as an actor, we had headshots. There's no more headshots. You could get an audition wherever you went. It was just such a different business. And on one respect, when I was first got here in LA in the early aughts, and really started my career out in like '02, '03, '04, there could be an argument that there was more access back then. To things. But then again, at this time, in the business now, there's so much more, with streaming and with social media. I think everyone has an opportunity now more than ever. Um, but that also comes with its disadvantages as well. I think it's harder to kind of see what the cream rising to the crop, to the top, is a little harder. But definitely as far as like the roles and just culturally and some of those racial standards have been completely demystified over the last decade or so. Now more than ever. I mean, uh, I think every job or role now you're looking to broaden the ethnic background of every cast, whether that's right or wrong. I think that's a good thing. So much more. Many stories are being told now, more than ever, and I think that's really great. That's a big difference.
Yes, and like you said, there are advantages and disadvantages every time, but we should take advantage of the advantages. So
Yes, no,
let's
I
go.
agree.
Yeah, let's go to your career. Oh my God, you have done so many things and work with so great, so much. You're a very talented filmmaker. So, but you started as an
Thank you.
actor, like you said, and then
Yeah.
what is it that you like the most? Because you have directed, you're a director and a producer. What do you like to do the most?
Well, I think when I started out as an actor, everything sort of led me to becoming a filmmaker. It was a natural progression from being an actor for about 10, 15 years. But during those times, I was always very curious as an artist. My vision wasn't in a box as an artist. I was always curious. I was always writing. And as the technology evolved, and it became more accessible to become a filmmaker, I started writing, um, and then I started editing, and then I started directing, and I got behind the camera. But all of that stemmed initially from being an actor and going to acting school and really learning how to tell a story. Being an actor was really my roots. That was the foundation for me as an artist, and really learning this business and learning how to tell a story. Now I so much love directing and sort of put acting on the back burner. Sort of retired from that. Directing, there's just so much more control over the story, your career. I think just more creatively fulfilling for me. But I loved those days as an actor, and those were great times, and really made me who I am as an artist.
Yes. So you studied acting and you also are a USC graduate. When you were a child, I don't know, a teenager, when did you
Yeah.
want to be a storyteller?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about this with someone the other day, and I remember it was 1981 or 1982, and I remember my father took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark with Harrison Ford. And I remember I must have been 6 or 7 at the time, and I remember in the watching it and just being completely enthralled. And I remember my dad told me that, obviously this isn't real, but that's a job. All those people, that's a job that people have, that from the actors to the people behind the cameras to everything, that's a job, and it's in Hollywood. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do that.
Mm.
And I always remember that was the film that said, "Oh, I love this. I love these stories. I want to be a part of this world." Um, but I really didn't pursue the arts as a kid or in high school, not until I graduated, really graduated from college. Um, did sort of the calling of the arts really like take a hold of me?
Hmm. And so let's mention your website now because we're going to talk about your projects and everything that you have on airing. But let's mention the website so we can repeat it throughout the conversation. It's your name, correct? So can you spell
Sure.
it?
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, mattferrucci.com, MattFerrucci. And at the website, you can see all my work, all the films I've done, etc.
Okay, so let's talk about one. I think it's a series that you have different episodes for a project called Companion, and please tell me
Yes.
about that project.
Yeah, Companion is the project that really sort of put me on the map as a director, and really sort of like solidified like this is what I am and this is what I'm doing. It was a project that we did a few years ago. And it's about, a sober companion, which is this really niche profession in the world of drug treatment and recovery from alcohol and drug abuse. And it's these sober companions are basically like these glorified babysitters who take care of sort of affluent addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics who are, recently out of recovery. And most of the time, the people that hire sober companions are, when you watch the news or the tabloids, are, actors, athletes, CEOs. And it's this really interesting profession. And my writing partner and I used to be this profession back in the day. So we decided to make this independent project about this. And it was called Companion. It's about a sober companion that watches an NBA player who's recently out of drug rehab. And it's loosely based on true events. And we made it as a 25-minute pilot, as an independent episodic pilot, because at that time, independent television started to sort of make its way in the festival circuit. And you started seeing more television festivals, and you started seeing more episodic stuff in digital platforms that wanted more short form projects. And we made this project. It won a bunch of festivals. Right now, it's streaming as a 3-episode series on this new digital platform called Aperture, and you can check it out there. But it's this really great show. It's one of the best things I've ever done, and I'd love for everyone to go see it.
Yes, and you're gonna make it a movie?
That's the plan now. When we did it, we got a lot of interest. We were featured in TV Guide on. We had won this independent television festival, and we got a lot of meetings. We got meetings with HBO and Showtime and GQ and Complex, and we came really close to making it as a television series, and it just didn't pan out for various reasons. But
Mhm.
over the last couple years, we've developed it into a feature film, and it's something that we hope to make next year as an independent feature. And we actually think by making it as a feature film, it would be easier to make it as a television show. after we make it as the feature film. So we wrote the feature screenplay. I wrote it, and hopefully we can make it next year.
That's great. And I can't wait to really watch the film. And also I'm gonna go to Aperture, the platform you mentioned, because oh my God, that's a story, very interesting story. And like you said, and I will always say it has to be coming from our heart. And if you work
Yeah,
like that, and you said your writing partner did also, so I know that's something that we really, it came from the heart. So thank you for that. I really love those
yeah,
types of stories. And now you have another, and I remember these and other projects have been nominated and won awards. So, and I know you're very talented. So tell me, you were very highly recommended. Tell me about
thank you.
anything for you. Of a short film, I
Yeah,
think you did.
yeah. That's the last thing I directed. It was a Anything for You was a short film that I made, and it was adapted from this award-winning one-act play by this great playwright in New York named Kate Allen. And um, it was a play about two women, two best friend women who are married to men. And one woman decides to have an affair on her husband, but she wants to have it with her best friend. And I thought this was such a fascinating one act. It was so funny, and I think it's just more poignant than ever with like sexual fluidity and whatnot. And I decided, well, let's flip the genders. And I thought it'd be more interesting as two married men who would want to have affairs on their wives with each other. So I adapted it. I got permission from the playwright. I recast it as two men. And I also cast it as with two, people of color. And, one of them was Elaine Uwe, a Filipino American actor who's been on a bunch of shows, and Sun Krish Bala, a South Asian actor who's also been on television on a bunch of shows. And we shot that. It went on the festival circuit last year. And what was great about that project is that, you were speaking previously about like community. That project really ingratiated me into the Asian American film community. We had played probably 7 or 8 Asian film festivals here in the United States, some really prestigious ones, and that project was the catalyst to get me more connected to the Asian film community, and I think that was the best thing that actually came from that project. So
Wow. Yes, it's and again, you're very versatile too. I think you have worked in comedy, and tell me about your work in that area in the comedy, which for me is, whether you're specialized or focused on, I don't know, fiction or, but you have wrote and directed comedy. So tell me about that.
yeah, I think I've always gravitated towards comedy, and when I was an actor. Coming up, I did a lot of comedic work, and I think being able to do comedy and write comedy, um, in a sense, sometimes isn't a talent that you can learn. It's something a little bit more inherent to the person. But those were my roots, and so even the more dramatic stuff that I do, I always try to find the comedy in that. Whether it's I really love doing stories about underdog characters and underestimated characters who need to find redemption or are looking for a second act in life. And I think that kind of speaks to sort of my upbringing and being mixed. But I also like to find the comedy in everything, even the really heavy stuff. And yeah, aside from that, there's a bunch of the first things that I did as a director were doing comedy sketches, and I had a comedy series, a web series that did really well. And then I ended up writing on Comedy Central for this animated sketch show called Trick Tank, and sort of fell into that. And it kind of speaks to, you never know where your career is going to take you. You have this sort of path thought out as my career is going to go from here to here, and I'm trying to get there. But a lot of times, as you keep moving in this industry, you get different things. I never thought I would be writing comedy sketches on an animated show, but that's what I did for 2 seasons on that show, and that was a great learning experience as well.
Mm.
But no, I love comedy. It will always be sort of my uh, go-to genre.
And I love it. And I remember when I saw your information, I know that Jordan Peele, who I really love the work that that
Yeah.
guy does, was in that, right? In that
Yeah.
schedule. You
Yeah.
also, there was a best pilot, a dark comedy, Kensington. Can you tell me about that one?
Yeah, yeah, no, Kensington, we that's a pilot we did after Companion. We did I directed and produced this other project with the same lead actor, Michael Mark Friedman, who was in Companion. And he was born and raised in Philadelphia and wanted to do he had written this great script about this therapist in Kensington, which is the roughest neighborhood in Philadelphia, and arguably one of the roughest neighborhoods in the United States. It's a neighborhood that's unfortunately known now as being it's one of like the heroin capitals of the United States. They've just really been decimated by drug abuse. But in light of that, he wanted to do a story about the good people and the real people that actually live in that neighborhood. Because that neighborhood gets such a bad rap. And so he wrote this really funny, dark comedy about a therapist who opens up a practice in this really rundown neighborhood. And it was once again I used the same actors, the same crew, and we went and shot this thing. And that project really took on a life of its own, sort of shining a different light on therapy and a community, talking about community, the community of Kensington and that community of Philadelphia. And it did really well. It had a great life on the festival circuit and got a lot of recognition that I didn't see coming. And it was just another step in sort of my path as a filmmaker to get where I am today.
Oh
So, and
my
you can also
God.
see that on my website too. Yeah.
Yeah, but oh God, you're mentioning the story of this project, and is oh my God, I really love all the stories, and are different stories, are
Yeah.
different genres, but you really I like the focus of your stories. There's another one that
Thank
I
you.
like to know, or the audience to know,
Yeah.
called Real Men, Real Issues, that is in another network. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, that was one of the first projects we did, and it was when web series were really kind of when web series were coming out, sort of the incubation of the internet and putting content on the internet. I did that project. I think might have been like '07, '08. And I think what's great about that project, and speaking to people out there that are thinking about getting into filmmaking and looking for advice, that was a project where me and my friends, we just wanted to make something, and we grabbed cameras, and I just found the most talented friends I had, and it was a tiny crew. There was only like four of us who made this show, and we wrote it, and we went out and we shot this series about two best friends, just bumbling idiots who were trying to make their way through Los Angeles, in their early 30s, late 20s, and we kind of called it like the male Sex in the City. But they were just sketches, and they were 5 to 6 minute episodes about dating, life, being a man, and I ended up editing all of those. That's where I really learned how to edit um, my own projects. I basically just taught myself. Went onto YouTube. I always
Mhm.
joke about having a degree from YouTube University, and taught myself how to edit. And we did this show, and we just threw it online, and we just put it out there in the world, expecting nothing from it. And some people saw it, and at the time, it's no longer in business. There was this network called Babblegum, and they
Mhm.
had seen it, and they were like, "We want to put this on our channel." And what started out as just a dumb, funny idea with a few friends ended up being on this channel and gotten written up and got us heightened our profile in a way that as storytellers. But it all just started with us just grabbing a camera and shooting something.
Wow. And I really would like to I don't want to say end, because I really this is such a great
Yeah, no, yeah.
conversation. But this the recommendation, because as you had mentioned before at the beginning, you had the other project in this Aperture platform, and
Yeah,
also when you were doing this, there was this Bubblegum network, right? So the content distribution for our projects is different now, and we have more opportunities. What would
yeah.
be the advice that you give to these new filmmakers, emerging filmmakers, on doing things?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if anyone's out there interested in making films and learning how to be a filmmaker, obviously the first thing I would do is to jump in a class, whether that's an acting class, a film class, any kind of class, because, at first you just want to build your community. You can't do it alone. Being an artist, a lot of times can be very isolating. Even as a screenwriter, if you're a screenwriter, you want to get into screenwriting, there's many writers groups out there, but you want to start building your network. But it's more to like creating content. I mean, there's so many distribution channels now. It's I tell people you are your own distribution channel. You have a distribution right in the palm of your hand with your iPhone, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. You can shoot your content and you can put it out there, and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people can see it immediately. Even with like podcasts like this, if you have a voice, if you have something you want to say, there are so many vehicles for you to put it out there that you just didn't have before. And then, if people like it, if it's good, people will find good things. But yeah, I just tell people all the time, just to continue to shoot, continue to make things, and it's not always going to be great right away, but that's good. It's always going to build, and you're going to get better from it. But um, write something, grab something, shoot something on the weekends, edit it. You can learn yourself. There's so many apps and everything, and just go for it.
Yes, thank you. That's a great advice. And I think if people don't go, I'm a risky person, but if you don't go for what you want, and then you're always gonna be there, right? And I always say we're not
Yeah,
trees, we can move. But I also read the other day something that said failure is not the end. Failure is part of the success. It's just within the success.
right.
You really need to fail in order to succeed. So let's try
Yes.
out. Let's do things. And obviously, I'm just in love for in the entertainment industry because of the
Yeah.
like your projects, the change and the impact that you can make in people's lives. I That's what I love the most. But I know that
Yeah.
that is not easy, and I know that sure you have had all these. Failing down and getting back up. So, can you share what have you done in the worst times of your life to, get back up?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think, uh, especially within the entertainment industry, you deal with a lot of rejection and you get really close to a lot of things. But I think, like you said, that's all part of the process. You have to fail, you have to fall down, but then getting back up, that's the story. That's the good stuff. That's the personal stuff is when you get back up. So you should really look at failure or falling down or, those are the great opportunities. Those are the great moments. That's when your story is really formed. And it's really kind of a perspective shift. That's how you kind of have to look at it when things aren't going your way or in sort of dark moments or when you're down. I think for me, uh, when those things happen, I'm like, well, how am I going to lift myself back up? Am I going to accept this or what am I going to do? What is the solution? And, that process, that journey of getting back up or starting over again, that's where you really find your artistic, story. That's the juice that keeps you creative,
Yeah.
and those are the things that a lot of people can relate to. So, I wouldn't look at, and listen, I'm no saint and things are hard for me, but I try to, when things get down or things get rough, and look at those moments as an opportunity.
Exactly, exactly. It's like you said, and it is those moments is when you really feel down. Is when there's a spark, like you said, and those new ideas is what takes you to the other place that Papa Dios, as I call him, takes you.
Yeah,
There's something that I like to ask you. Finally,
yeah,
finalizing. I really don't
sure,
want to let you go, as you can see, but
no
there's
problem.
a well-being. How do you take care of your well-being? Because that's important for our audience too. I really would love for people to have success, to go for what they really like, but also to take care of their well-being. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, again, a really good question. I think outside of sort of the obvious answers, health and I think state of mind. I think I think there's a world out there that we need to be more involved in, and I think that and for me, this is something I need to practice more often. But I just think there's a lot of, and this might be a big answer to this question, but there's a lot of things that are isolating us these days. Keeping us at home. Whether it's your computer, the television, streaming, your phone, apps, technology, are really, they're supposed to make us more connected. But I think the society has never been less connected to
Yes.
people and human connection. And, I think for my well-being is really sort of forcing myself a lot of times to get out there in the world, to experience things. Nothing's going to happen inside. And so, I think if anything, it's just sort of a really simple answer is to get out there in the world, to experience things, to sort of put that technology down, to force a human connection with people, to call your friends, to stay connected. And when you do that, when I do that, I feel so much better about myself and my place in the world when I'm talking to friends, talking to families, experiencing the world, putting that phone down. I think that really can be a really good starting point and one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself.
Matt, this has been one of the most, I don't know how to tell you, your answer the most on point, because I've
Yeah, thank
always
you.
said, okay, let's do exercise, let's eat well, let's be spiritual. But you are so on point with that answer, because I understand, because of this remote work, that I understand that
Yeah,
it was good, like you said,
sure.
but has affected so much the mental health.
Yeah,
Because I believe in the hybrid. I think it's the word, the half and half. Yes, let's work from home
right.
for a half and half if you do that, but getting to know what the other people are suffering, because there are other people
Hmm.
suffering, and it's good when you connect with those other people, going out and not only with the people that think alike. And that's another thing, right? And you don't have to keep
Yeah,
disagreeing and fighting with people, but at least knowing that everyone is suffering and everyone deserves to be happy too. So that's a really great advice for the well-being. Thank you so much, Matt, for that.
thank you. Oh,
No,
thank you.
and
Thank you. Appreciate it.
thank you for sharing your story. And please repeat your website so people can go and look for you, look for your work. And thank you for doing what you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, you can see all my work and everything and updates at www.mattferrucci.com. And I just want to thank you for having me on this podcast. I mean, like, this is to our last answer. This is what this is about, just having these conversations and this connection with someone new and discussing these things is, I think, really, really important.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Matt. And as always, thank you for listening. We are celebrating the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and you just listened to filmmaker Matt Ferrucci. Remember to visit his website. And if you are not subscribed to our episodes, please, I invite you to do it so you can become part of our community. We talk about multiculturalism in the media and entertainment industry. I'm Rosy Egigure. Hasta la próxima.